What do we know?
Well, this is a Wall Street Journal story, and I've just seen the New York Times have matched it as well with some of their own reporting, saying that at least or hundreds of thousands of emails potentially could have been accessed through a compromised security key in the Microsoft Outlook email program or system. And that obviously was reported a couple of weeks ago, or about a week ago, when officials from the United States confirmed that Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo's email inbox had been compromised. Now we're learning from these other reports that Nicholas Burns, the man you see here, who's the ambassador to China, had his inbox potentially compromised and hacked, as well as the State Department's top man on East Asian affairs, and who really lined up and did a lot of the back channel work leading up to Antony Blinken's visit to Beijing a couple of weeks ago, and that is the Assistant Secretary of State for East Asia Affairs, Daniel Crichtonbrink. Their inboxes are reportedly and allegedly hacked, and Microsoft, when that story came out last week about Gina Raimondo, Microsoft had said that the origin of the hack was most likely mainland China. And also we're seeing from the New York Times story that has just moved that this was a targeted attack using compromised security key, as I said, but it was traditional espionage, according to the sources the New York Times quoted. So again, this is a developing story, but again, wouldn't necessarily be too much of a surprise. I'm not necessarily saying it's not a surprise because of the allegations of China, but it comes at a time when there's been increased engagement, if you will, on the diplomatic front between China and the United States. And potentially, if it was hackers from China, then these sources would say they would be able to potentially glean some sensitive information that would help them obviously prepare for those meetings with Antony Blinken, with the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, as well as the climate envoy John Kerry, all three of those Biden administration officials visiting Beijing most recently. So we're still trying to corroborate the story right now. We're still waiting for any kind of official confirmation or denial from China as well as from the United States. But again, a developing story. But the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I believe it was around the 13th of July, when the story first appeared, essentially said the U.S. should account for its cyber attacks as soon as possible rather than spread false information and divert attention. Stay tuned to this story.